In the video game and TV series The Last of Us, people are turned into zombies by a fungal infection. It's science fiction, but it's based on a real-life fungus. Stay tuned. Ahead I'll talk with Dr. Arturo Casadevall about What If Fungi Win. In the book, he explores the history of fungi and how they could either save us or kill us. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Dr. Arturo Casadevall is an epidemiologist, professor, and inventor. He's the chair of the Department of Molecular Microbiology and Immunology at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. Dr. Casadevall, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Dan, thank you so much for having me and to be able to talk about the fungi.
Now, you begin the book and end the book by making a reference to the video game and the TV series The Last of Us. And you point out that, well, that is science fiction, but it's really based on a real-life fungi. So tell us about it.
So you're absolutely right. When The Last of Us came out, there was, I had my 15 minutes of fame, and there was, everybody wanted to know, is this possible? And my answer was always, improbable, but not impossible. And the reason for that is because there is a biological plausibility. For example, there is a fungus that takes control over ants and turns them into zombies. And we know that some fungi make LSD. So you can begin to imagine connecting the biological dots. But do we know of any fungal species that can turn humans into zombies? No. Is there some possible fungal species out there that we haven't yet characterized that could turn humans into zombie? Maybe.
Tell us a little bit about, I guess, the pluses and minuses here. You know, should we be concerned or not, or does it all depend on how we're able to somehow interact with those?
So the fungal world is immense. And I think the important thing to keep in mind is that the benefits that we get from the fungal world far outweigh any of the debits. The fungal world is critical for life on Earth as we know it. On one hand, you could have wine, bread, mushrooms, staples of life that are all from the fungal kingdom. On the other hand, we know that they can cause very severe diseases and that some of the fungi are actually destroying entire ecosystems, like the bats in North America and the frogs throughout the world.
Well, there's so much in this book. We're just going to touch on a few things here, but give us a brief overview of what readers can expect to find in the book.
So what I wanted to do was to write a book that was short, that was accessible to the general reader. And here I want to thank my co-writer, Stephanie Desmond, who's a terrific writer who contributed so much of the great syntax to the book. So the idea was to take the reader through some of these amazing facts, like the largest organism on Earth is a fungus that weighs 35,000 tons, and it's about 4 square miles in size, to the fungi that cause disease, to what's happening in the space station, where many of the fungi seem to be thriving, having been brought up by the air that we sent to the space station. So the thought was to give some of these amazing snippets, and therefore get people interested in the fungal kingdom, because it's unappreciated. Many people, it's an afterthought. Think about it. You don't see it. The closest you see this enormous kingdom is when it rains and we see some mushrooms sprout, or when you are in the produce section of the supermarket, you may see, but fungi are everywhere, and they are critical for life on Earth.
What do we know about the history of fungus on Earth? Is there more now than there used to be, or what do we know?
So they're ancient. They go back to the beginning of life as we know it. They are at least been around for at least 1 billion years. They are our closest relatives. Now, people often do a double back and said, "What do you mean?" And that is, if you were to look at our DNA and you would compare it to fungal DNA, what you find is that it is far more similar than we are to trees, than we are to bacteria, than we are to parasites. So this enormous kingdom is enormously diverse, over 6 million species out there, of which we know maybe 200,000. And we know that the other ones are there because we can see their traces in DNA, but we have not studied them or characterized them.
There are, as you mentioned, lots of fascinating facts in this book. I want to come back to the largest organism that you referenced before. And I understand that's in Oregon. And you wouldn't know that it's there because most of it's underground.
Correct. You only see the effects on some trees around it. And the question is, how do people know that in fact that is the largest organism? Well, what they do is they sample it. They go into the ground, they take some of it, they sample it genetically, they do like a DNA analysis, and they find that the DNA is the same as if you walk a mile. It's the same organism, which is basically grown and sprouted all these connections through all those layers. And it's not only area, it's depth. Because, Dan, think about it, this thing is also going deep into the ground and it's connecting and it's feeling, aware of everything that, I wouldn't say consciously, but biochemically aware of what's going on in all that space.
Another fascinating fact you bring up, and I'm just really curious about how this played into it, and that's the Salem witch trials.
So in the 70s, so let's go back a little bit. There is a fungus that makes a compound that can give you hallucinations. Those compounds are known as ergots, the ergot alkaloids. And there is very well documented epidemics of hallucinations that happen in the Middle Ages. This stuff can grow on our grain that we used to eat. So when people eat grains, they're getting this compound. And an individual, a scientist, made the case that some of the hallucinations that led to the Salem trials may have been the result of ergotism. That is, those individuals consumed food that was contaminated with the fungus and had hallucinations, saw things that was construed to be, experiences with the devil and things like that led to the famous witch trials.
I'm talking with Dr. Arturo Casadevall about What If Fungi Win, and our conversation continues in a moment. If you appreciate this discussion, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. I'm curious, how did you become interested in this topic?
So Dan, I became interested in this topic as a physician. My formative years were in the mid-'80s and as a doctor. At Bellevue Hospital when I saw a lot of patients with AIDS getting fungal diseases. So I've devoted my career to working on fungal diseases. My lab works in trying to make therapies, trying to make vaccines for the fungi. But as I widened my horizons, I discovered that, I work on a very small microcosm of the fungal world, fungal diseases. There is a lot more interesting stuff out there. And the purpose of this book is to bring people in and show them aspects of this kingdom by providing these snippets that are very interesting, like what is the largest animal, the fact that we need them for degrading plants, the fact that they make wine, they make bread, they are great foods, they're very healthy, they trigger immunity. So all those snippets together, and the idea is again to make both the general public as well as specialists, because I think specialists like me are often too focused on one area, aware of this larger world that is fascinating.
As we learn more about fungi, what do you think about the future? Are we going to be able to learn new ways to utilize them?
Absolutely. I think that already that is happening. There are companies focused on making fungal leather. It's just like leather, in which you can grow this fungi into shapes and use them to make what we call leather products, purses, close if necessary. But the one thing from medicine point of view, we have explored only a few. And think about it, they make penicillins. They make the drugs that lower cholesterol. They make the drugs that help us when keep transplanted organs when people get transplants. So my view is that there is a lot of good out there. And if we continue to investigate them, we're going to find these things, and they may lead to even more drugs and more therapies and more ways by which humanity can benefit.
And that sounds wonderful, but is there also a flip side to that? That for another reason, we need to be studying fungi because we don't know about what threats they might pose.
Absolutely. Humanity is always surprised when it deals with an epidemic or a pandemic. And we tend to always focus, we are like the generals on the last war. And then we tend to get surprised. When I went to medical school, I was taught that retroviruses like HIV did not cause disease. And coronaviruses only cause sniffles. And in my lifetime, we've seen the HIV pandemic, and now we're seeing the coronavirus pandemic. My view is that there is significant threats from the fungal world, and we need to be aware of them, and we need to study them and to prepare for them, because ultimately, the best protection for humanity is to know about it and to do what it can to prepare itself.
So, in terms of the research you do, is that part of the impetus? You want to learn more so that you can help prevent some of these things, or if they do pop up, have a way of treating it?
That's correct. About a third of my lab works on making a vaccine for a fungus called Cryptococcus. It's not a threat for most people. You have to be immunocompromised to be a threat. But when people get it, it's very difficult to treat, and it has a high mortality. So if you could take individuals who are likely to become immunosuppressed as a result of therapies, as a result of cancer, as a result of other interventions, and give them this vaccine and prevent this fungal disease, well, that's one good way to deal with the problem. Prevention is always better than cure.
So, as we mentioned, there's much more in this book that we don't have time to talk about. What would you say are some of the key insights that you hope readers will take from it?
I think the key insights is the diversity of experiences and how important this world that we can't see is for life on Earth. And to enjoy your wine, to enjoy your bread, to enjoy your mushrooms, but also keep an eye on this group of organisms, because for all they good, they also pose a threat. We see it in the frogs. The frogs are being destroyed throughout the world by a chytrid fungus. We see it by North America. The bats are in trouble from the white nose syndrome. So there is a nuance here, a nuance between great good and great harm. But the best defense is knowledge, and that leads to preparedness.
Well, to learn more, the book is What If Fungi Win by Dr. Arturo Casadevall. Dr. Casadevall, thank you for talking with me today.
Dan, thank you so much for having me.
Now, if you'd like to purchase What If Fungi Win, I've placed a link for you in the description below. And if you'd like to see more videos about books and their authors on a wide variety of topics, be sure to subscribe, like, and click on the bell to be notified about future programs. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.